Adele Farutimi joins us live here in Abuja. So thank you so much, Mr. Farutimi, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much indeed.
Except to say I'm not a lawyer again. Because it's important that distinction be made clear.
You are not a lawyer again?
I am retired.
Can you retire? If you've been called to the bar, you've been called to the bar.
Yeah, but I can choose to decide that I've called a day on the profession, the practice of the law itself. I've called it a day. Did that 5 years ago, and I'm done.
Why? Why so?
Multiple reasons, but the key one being the fact that I'd always desired to leave the practice of law after a point, but the fact that it has become increasingly possible to practice law in a lawless environment, it was very easy to say bye-bye. But that predated, let me be clear, it wasn't like Nigeria became like this overnight. It was like this since I was born. So I had already made it clear to myself that once I got to a point in my life, I was going to say goodbye to earning a living, saying my Lord and your worship to people I know are not in any way fitting or deserving to be called those names. I know that I live in a country that is ruled essentially by impunity and not law. So whilst I could play that game of practicing law until a point in my life, I understood clearly that after 50, the life is essentially over, really. You can't keep living to earn a living after 50. So I told myself since I was in the university, and all my friends who are in university with me will tell you, I told them back then, once I turned 50, I was leaving. So it's not just the fact that the judiciary or the legal system is, at best, a sham. That's not just the reason. I had a personal desire to leave by the time I turned 50, and it helped to say bye-bye.
So in some way, you lost hope in the judicial process?
I never had any hope in the judiciary at any point.
Why? So why do you bow then before the temple of justice?
Hold on. It is one thing to read law to earn a living, to read law so that you also know what the law says, or to read law in the delusion that you might get justice out of a judicial system that is not designed to deliver justice. So I'm not suggesting that there aren't instances where you can extract justice out of the system. You would have episodic periods when justice will be delivered, either because the judex himself has a conscience, or because you were fortunate to have all the evidence tagged in your favor and impossible for anyone to twist the outcome. But the reality is that the judiciary is hardly the last hope of the common man in our country. We must be bold enough to tell ourselves this truth.
How bad are things?
Horrible. Our judiciary is no different from our custom or our police or any other part of the Nigerian state. Why should we be surprised that the judiciary reflects us? It is us. We are the ones who are there. So it is either we are good enough as a people to do justice to ourselves, or we are not. So we should at least tell ourselves these home truths. The judiciary is not staffed by people from Ghana, Togo, Lome, or anywhere else. They are Nigerians like me and you, bowing to the same pressure, knowing the truths that me and you know, that we sometimes find difficult to express for several reasons. Not only fear.
How so? Why do you think things get so bad? I mean, there are other climes where even in the UK, in the US, there are extrapolation about how bad things are within their judiciary also. But, I mean, why do you think things in Nigeria, especially in the judiciary, are differently horrible like you've described?
No. I didn't say especially. See, our situation is this. In the absence of the rule of law, we have become a people governed essentially by the administration of impunity. The policeman who is supposed to enforce the law, in the absence of laws to enforce, has to enforce some form of order. And the order he enforces is based on the whim of the political masters he serves. So you find in essence that the policeman is administering impunity. So when he is done administering impunity, somebody has to pretend to uphold the law. And that is the judiciary. But the judiciary in question is peopled essentially by the likes of me and you and all the other Nigerians. The appointive process has already assured problems because it's coming through the same filter that filters the same segments of society from which you and I are drawn. So a lawyer coming out of this system is nominated by those who are given the powers of nomination for judicial offices, it's no wonder that you sometimes find that the list of appointed judges is reflective of who is who in the judiciary. So the judiciary has more or less become an hereditary position found on who you know, who your parents are, or your political affiliations. It's become a way to settle persons who are children of the system. So you then begin to get the bookcasualization of our judiciary.
Is that an English word?
Well, we have to introduce it into our word. If we have a situation where a senator, in his valedictory speech, is telling us how decisions are made in our judiciary. And the man's name happens to be Bukachua, so we might as well attribute it to him.
The woman, the Honorable Justice Bukachua, had denied.
She can deny anything she cares to deny, as much as she cares to deny it. But when I'm sat in this country and I am seeing obscene, bizarre decisions of courts that have no bearing on common sense, and it is normalized as coming from hallowed chambers, and I'm supposed to find some level of explanation so that I might rationalize the insanity that has become normal in my space. So a man comes voluntarily and speaks. What he said is not, we don't need to begin to interpret it. It's not about 25% of this. He spoke unambiguously. The man was clear.